The most dangerous Clinton scandal of all. That's the Uranium One scandal. Tonight, we have even more new damning information to bring you. The Hill's John Solomon, Allison Spann. They are out tonight with another absolutely stunning report. The headline is this: Uranium One deal led to some exports to Europe. This has been the #1 excuse they've been telling us. John Solomon is reporting tonight that after the Obama administration approved the sale of Uranium One. Now, remember, 2009, we knew about lies and bribes and kickbacks and extortion, money laundering and racketeering, and they still allowed the deal through. But anyway, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission gave assurances the raw nuclear fuel would never be exported out of this country. But Solomon, he obtained the NRC memos. They did approve the shipment of yellow cake uranium from the U.S. to Canada through a third-party trucking company. And unbelievably, some of that nuclear material made its way all the way to Europe, maybe even Asia. John Solomon writes, quote, Uranium One exports flowed from Wyoming to Canada onto Europe between 2012 and 2014, and the approval involved a process with multiple agencies. Now, the American branch of Uranium One gave a statement to The Hill confirming it did export uranium to Canada through the trucking firm, and that 25% of that nuclear fuel made its way outside of North America to Europe and Asia. Wow. This has been their #1 excuse. They stressed the exports complied with federal law. Yeah, because they used the company and then they didn't have to get their own license. And a statement from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission reads in part, the NRC licensing actions complied with the Atomic Energy Act, Section 123 agreement, where the receiving country, in this case Canada, is required to commit to use the material for only peaceful purposes. By the way, does anyone at home know we import uranium because we don't have enough? So when the uranium made its way to Canada, to Europe, what then? How did that happen? Now, if this material is crossing the Atlantic, what is preventing it from getting into Russia? And the question remains, why in the hell would anybody approve the sale of 20% of America's uranium to Vladimir Putin and the bad actor he is and the hostile regime Russia, government approved by Hillary Clinton, Eric Holder, other high-ranking officials in the Obama administration? John Solomon, Sarah Carter, they will join us. They will give us a full investigative report. Solomon has breaking news on the Uranium One scandal. Now, his piece out today is entitled Uranium One Deal Led to Some Exports to Europe, Memos Show. Sarah Carter from Circa News also has a new report out tonight titled Current DOE Official Once Consulted 4 Russian Nuclear Companies. Now, we reached out to the official that Sarah mentioned in our article for comment. Surprisingly, we've yet to hear back. Here with more, The Hill's John Solomon, and from circanews.com. You guys have done such an amazing job. It is so telling. As big as the news you're both breaking tonight, this is our third story. Hillary stealing a primary, all of the information on the dossier, and she now is admitting, oh, but that's not collusion. Let me start, John, with you. Your report came out earlier today. Sarah, yours just came out now, so we'll get you both in. John, tell us what you know, because we were told as the #1 excuse, the uranium never went outside the U.S. That talking point is a lie.
Yeah, no, it's definitely disproven. There's not any doubt that the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission authorized through a backdoor a third-party a license to let Uranium One export to Canada. And then, according to the Department of Energy records and according to a statement that Uranium One gave us, some of that uranium left Canada and went to Europe and possibly to Asia. So,
do we know where in Europe?
We don't. No.
Do we know where in Asia?
We do not. No, it's proprietary information, the final destinations. At least so far, we've not been able to get that. We'll keep digging, but I think the most important point is, you said it in your opening monologue, we're a country that has to import most of our uranium. Here's uranium in the United States, and for some reason we let it go to Canada and possibly to Europe and beyond. And I think that's been the concern that all the members of Congress, Democrat and Republican, had when this deal went through. And now they're finding out the assurances they were given simply aren't true.
Let me stay on your report for a minute, because you also talk about, and this now implicates Barack Obama himself, that you detailed, and I'm guessing this is only going to be the start of what you're about to reveal, that Barack Obama purposefully manipulated the process to allow this trucking company to be the conduit by which they got the uranium out of the country. Tell us what you found.
Yeah, there wasn't just one decision. We all look at Uranium 1 and say, well, they let them buy the mine and 20% of the current ore that was being mined at that time was under their control. But there were a series of decisions made by the Obama administration time and time again between 2010 and 2012 that are incredibly favorable to Rosatom, the state-owned Russian nuclear energy industry. And time and again, these decisions are being made while the FBI knows that there's criminality going on by that company's executives.
The bribery, extortion, the money laundering, the racketeering, and so on.
Kickbacks and right, yeah. And then there's a second thing that I'm just starting to report out now, but there were also concerns in the Obama administration, very specific concerns that Russia was engaged in a uranium scheme, that it was going to get enough control of uranium, dump it on the market, drive all the prices down, and put all the other people out of business. Those are two legitimate national security concerns that don't seem to have had an effect on all these giveaways.
It's breathtaking. Our national security, we don't have enough uranium. All right, Sarah, you have a blockbuster report about this current DOE official consulted for the Russian nuclear companies?
Yes. So basically, Cheryl Moss-Herman, she's now with the Office of Nuclear Energy, and I also reached out to her over the week. In fact, contacted the DOE over a period of a week, trying to get more information. But she basically consulted for 10X Antenna, and she wrote this analysis. It's an extensive analysis on the U.S. at the time. And remember, Sean, during this time period in 2010, there were so many people in Congress that were outraged. They didn't want this deal to go through. They were really concerned about Russia and Iran, and that connection made them scared. It terrified them of this deal. But she reassures the Russians in this analysis, look, the 2009 Iran sanctions bill, that's in the past. Now, 2010, there's a less stringent bill that will allow you to move forward with all of your plans. A lot of what John was talking about, which is, going into the U.S. market and really penetrating the U.S. market and the U.S. energy market.
Right,
and now she's with the DOE.
Sarah, stay with you. I honestly believe that your reporting has been incredible, both of you. Gutsy, courageous. We don't have this in the media today. Sarah, where is this going to end up? I was just talking to Greg Jarrett. We don't even have a special counsel. It's breathtaking to me. How do we have this ability of the Clintons to constantly avoid the law that applies to the rest of us?
Sean, that's the most important question. Where does this go from here? In order for this to be fully investigated, it needs a special counsel. There are some things that John and I just cannot, I don't think, legally push forward with, and those are classified. That's classified information. Remember, we have an informant that's ready to talk. They are willing to talk to congressional members in the House Intelligence Committee, in oversight. But there are so many other issues out there, and the more you peel back this onion, the more you find out that there are things of a classified nature that affect our national security that really do need to be investigated.
All right, guys, we're going to have you both on tomorrow.
Another issue where I think there's bipartisan stupidity going on. So there's a big discussion now going on over internet censorship, and it's all based on the 2016 election. So there's been a lot of talk in recent days about how Hillary Clinton, she was jobbed basically by the Russians. The Russians used Facebook and Twitter in order to push their own political agenda, in order to push political chaos in the United States. There was a study that came out and said that the Russians had, I guess, 150 million engagements on Facebook. And this was supposedly shifting the election. Okay, let me put that in perspective. Okay, I know my own Facebook engagement numbers. That's how many, they said the entire election cycle, I guess, they had 150 million engagements, something to that effect. I want to look up the exact statistics so I make sure that I get this right. Engagements, Russian bots. Okay, so they say that 126 million people in the United States may have seen posts presented by the Russian government. Right? Maybe 126 million users may have seen those posts. Okay, my weekly reach on Facebook from my Facebook page alone is almost 30 million. So I do that every month. Did I swing the 2016 election? Do I have the numbers to swing the 2016 election? Obviously not, because if I did, no one would have voted. right? So that obviously is not the case. But what's amazing is that the Democrats are so ensconced in this idea that Hillary must have won the election that they have to say that it was the Russian bots that really won her the election now. Now, before I show you what these idiot senators are saying, and I think it's from both parties, the stupidity, I want to show you some of what the Russian bots were putting out that supposedly swung the election. Okay, so here is we're going to show a couple of these graphics. Austin, can we get the Bernie Sanders graphic here? The buff Bernie. So this is one of the Russian fake pages. Okay, it is an animated picture of a very gay-looking Bernie Sanders doing a muscle man pose in multiple colors, and it says LGBT United. You can color your own Bernie hero. There's a new coloring book called Buff Bernie, a coloring book for Berniacs. It's full of very attractive doodles of Bernie Sanders in muscle poses. The author of the book said she wanted people to stop taking this whole thing too serious. The coloring is something that suits for all people. So first of all, the English in it is just atrocious. Second of all, did this shift the election? Right? This picture of Bernie Sanders in a thong, right? An animated Bernie Sanders in a thong. That's what shifted the election. Oh, if only we'd been able to stop that sort of nefarious activity by the Russians. That wasn't the only one. Right? Do we have any more of these? Because they're really absurd. This one is from some sort of group called American Made, and then it's a picture of a father and a son both carrying guns, and it says, "This is the way our children have to be raised. It's not the promotion of violence, it's the promotion of confidence and the ability to defend yourself," or whatever it is. This was, I think the number of times these were clicked on, the first one was clicked on like 100 times. This one was clicked on like 800 times. Wow, just shocking material. It was this sort of thing that shifted the election. This is my personal favorite. I loved this one so much. Okay, this one was from a group called Army of Jesus. If you can't see it, you should really check it out. Again, this is what Democrats are saying won the election for Donald Trump. Okay, it is an animation of Jesus wrestling with the devil, and then it says, "Satan, if I win, Clinton wins. Jesus, not if I can help it." And then it says, "Press like to help Jesus win." And then the caption says, "Today Americans are able to elect a president with godly moral principles. Hillary is a Satan, and her crimes and lies had proved just how evil she is." Again, look at the grammar here, right? The grammar isn't even English. "And even though Donald Trump isn't a saint by any means, he's at least an honest man, and he cares deeply for this country. My vote goes for him." Okay, so yes, it's a pro-Trump ad. Look at the number of shares at the bottom of this. 29 shares. 29 shares, okay? When I put up a video, we're talking thousands and thousands of shares. This is the sort of stuff Democrats say shifted the election, and we have to punish Facebook and Twitter and Google, because if they had shut down the Russian bots, then Hillary certainly would have won. Here is Dianne Feinstein openly threatening Facebook, Google, and Twitter, saying to them that if you don't find a way to crack down on material we don't like, we will find a way to do it. This is a threat to the First Amendment, what she's talking about here.
You have a huge problem on your hands, and the United States is going to be the first of the countries to bring it to your attention, and others are going to follow, I'm sure, because you bear this responsibility. You've created these platforms, and now they are being misused, and you have to be the ones to do something about it. Or we will.
Okay, you do something about it, or we will, is the government threatening regulation of an industry that's not violating the law. Okay, it's not violation of the law for Russia today to put out propaganda, or for Russian bots to put out propaganda, or for Russian groups to put out propaganda. It isn't. The big problem here is not that the Russians were trying to exploit the system. The big problem is that Americans are gullible and will click on anything that hits our buttons in the right way. Okay, I would venture to say that if you're going to talk about propaganda that benefited the Trump campaign, start with InfoWars. Don't start with Russia Today, right? And if you're going to talk about propaganda that benefited Hillary Clinton, don't talk about the Russians. Okay, talk about the ACLU. I mean, there are groups in American life, in the Huffington Post, there are groups in American life that put out material like this to try to censor Facebook, Twitter, and Google and suggest that it's their fault is really absurd. Tom Cotton did the same thing from the right. Again, I like Senator Cotton, but I think he's dead wrong here.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your appearance this morning. Mr. Edgett, I want to discuss Twitter's history of cooperation with our intelligence community. Last year, in an open hearing before this committee, I asked then CIA Director John Brennan about Twitter's decision to prohibit a subsidiary called Data Miner from working with our intelligence community. Director Brennan stated that he was disappointed in Twitter's decision, but at the same time, we learned that Twitter was refusing to work with CIA and the rest of the intelligence community. We also learned that Twitter was pitching Russia Today and Sputnik propaganda arms of the Kremlin to sell advertisements for profit. So in essence, last year, Russia was beginning its covert influence campaign against the United States, and Twitter was on the side of Russia as opposed to the national security interests of the United States.
Okay, so first of all, if there are Russians who want to put out political messages, you know, the only thing that's illegal here is if there's actually like a campaign contribution, like if Russia's making active campaign contributions. So if they said we want to back Trump and we want to put out ads, that's a violation of law by Russia. Right, but the idea that Twitter has to, like, what if there's a Russian citizen an American citizen living in Russia who wants to put out these messages? And if the messages are exactly the same as messages that would be put out by Team Trump or Team Clinton, let's put it this way, I am much more worried about the government cracking down on Facebook, Twitter, and Google than I am about Twitter, Facebook, and Google somehow falling into the pocket of the nefarious Russians to shift our election system. And I think we better be careful with all of this.